Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sports Scope. I'm your host, Robert Butler, on this, 14th day of April. I don't think we have any basketball games on tonight, NBA wise. Uh, Good show I got tonight. Now, listen, I'm going to give you my mock draft if I were the general manager. Top 11. I said normally we do top 10, but since I'm out of the Nashville, Tennessee area, I'll give you my top 11. Also, the Commanders. The Commanders look to be sold. Talk about that. And I was reading a story about Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. There's a story to the Athletic. I'll talk about that. Who to pay, who not to pay, how to keep this team going, what he is eligible for a extension. I'll jump on all that and more here on Sports Scope. I'll be back in 49 seconds. Hello, Sports Scope followers. The program has seen tremendous growth since going 5 days a week. I just wanted to thank everybody for your cash contributions and sharing the program with friends and families. Just a reminder, if you want to contribute to the program, go to the Cash App, the cash sign, and Sports Scope. There are other ways to contribute to the program listed at the bottom of the screen. If you want to advertise on the program, go to sports, that is sports with an S, another S, scope, SKOPE, at gmail.com, just like it's listed at the bottom of the screen. Thank you and enjoy the program. Alrighty then, I'm back here live on All Links. So the biggest story today is the Commanders. The Commanders are going to sell for, I want to say, $6 billion. That is a record. It is the most ever by an organization. It was the highest grade there. Also, on Friends in Media Network, that's FRIENDZ Media Network channel on YouTube. I'll be on Spitball and Sports tomorrow at 6 p.m. 6 p.m. Eastern for about 30 minutes. John Restano, talking with him on his show tomorrow, again for about 30 minutes. So check that out. And of course, we'll have Carlos Mad New Yorker Chavez here. And we'll talk about these NBA playoffs. And I guess I will ask him about this purchase here. So the Commanders have sold to this Chris Harris Group. This guy owns the 76ers. Kind of odd, though. So he's got a Philadelphia team. And he owns the New Jersey Devils. He's buying them for $6.05 billion. It's the highest ever in the highest ever professional sports franchise that's being sold. I want to say that the last was prior to this was the Denver Broncos, folks, at $4.5 billion. So listen to former Washington Redskin commander Robert Griffin III when this news came out. This is on NFL Live earlier.
First of my thoughts are just what the city's thinking right now. I know it's a parade in my city right now. They are flooding the streets, excited about this sale of the team. Obviously, it hasn't gone through yet, and there's still a process that they have to go through to make it official. But I think this will help lift a dark cloud from the organization, allow the players and the coaches and everyone involved to truly put all of their focus in on only trying to win football games and obviously treating the people that work there the way that they should be treated. So that's why.
Now, the Commanders, I say this is one of the worst. I mean, I was looking up some of the worst owners in sports, and at the top 10, the Bleacher Report. I saw some others through Rolling Stone magazine. And of course, when you do stuff like that through the media, a lot of them rated the owners on politics and all that stuff. And the media usually leans a certain way, even in a certain sports media, because they listed George Steinbrenner. George Steinbrenner won like nobody's business in the Yankees. But as far as Daniel Snyder is concerned, 9 coaches. He bought this team in '99. Okay. And when he bought this team, this is an organization, the second most valuable, most popular organization in all, and other than the Dallas Cowboys in the NFL. We're talking in the 80s and 90s. Of course, Donald Sterling's there too, Pickles. Jim Irsay's father, Jim Irsay Sr., on the Baltimore Colts, he was up there as one of the worst owners in sports history. So you got to really think about it. Again, he bought this team in 1999, 9 coaches, 23 years. And I looked up some of the list here of some of the worst owners, some of the worst things that he has done since taking over. Okay, here we go. This is how big this purchase is. The Broncos last year, 4.65. This past year, obviously, we talked about the Suns. They sold for $4 billion. The New York Mets sold for $2.4 billion. Okay, and that's in 2020. This is $6 billion. It's the most in history. But the Bleacher Report, 10 of the worst things by Daniel Snyder. According to Bleacher Report, he charged for training camp during the offseason of 2000 and never looked back. Nobody else does that. I've been to a few training camps here. Continues the nickel and dime families throughout the Atlantic region, what this article says. He charged fans to go to training camp. And also, I'm on a show with Jim Jeffcoat, former Dallas Cowboy. His son, Jackson Jeffcoat, played for University of Texas, played for the then Washington Redskins. He said he and teammates had an issue with Snyder putting up lounge chairs, watching the guys practice. He said it come off kind of condescending, like, yeah, look at our help, type of thing. Just rub the players the wrong way. Another one of their biggest hits. And I remember this, Pickles, back in 2000, buying the all overage team is what Bleacher Reports put out. They paid all this big money for guys like Bruce Smith, way past his prime, Deion Sanders, Jeff George, and Mark Brunell. Just a few players throughout the years. The over-the-hill players. That was when he first took over. And of course, the team was garbage that year. Hiring guys like Jim Zorn. In the NFL, there are coaches who dabble into head coaching and realize they're simply not in their cup of tea. Jim Zorn did that in 2008, 2009. That's what the Bleacher Report. Also hired Steve Spurrier. He did go 7-9 his first year. Nothing expected, but 7-9 is viewed as something to build on. His second season went 5-11, and his time was done. Never came back. Remember this one, Pickles? Albert Haynesworth. He signed Haynesworth to the $100 million contract, probably the most, $41 million guaranteed. And he put him in a position where he didn't even play his natural position at the 4-3 defensive tackle. They put him in a 3-4 after saying that he did not want to play in the 3-4. Haynesworth, probably one of the worst contracts of all time. Did not do anything. This article says how followed the money to his move to D.C. after being offered a $100 million contract. His paycheck did not match his production. To make things worse, $41 million of it was guaranteed. Haynesworth showed up. He fit the bill by showing up to training camp out of shape, overweight, and failed conditioning tests that required him to run 25 yards and back within 70 seconds. All of this took place, and he refused to come to the mandatory minicamp for $100 million because he was ticked off about his, Pickle says he played 9 months. Trading for Donovan McNabb. Donovan McNabb moved south for 9. This is from Al-95 from 11 years in Philadelphia. to the Redskins on Easter Day, in an Easter Day trade in 2010. After seeing McNabb twice a year for 11 years, Snyder and the Redskins thought trading away a second-round pick and a third-round conditional round pick would be a still experienced quarterback. He ended up going 5-11 and throwing more interceptions and touchdowns, 15-14. Shanahan ended up benching him by the end of the season, which all signal. So that was a terrible thing. So yeah, I mean, he's just a world-class F up, one of these guys who he was a there was an article I read years ago, Pickles, and it had a list of accidental billionaires, and it talked about people like Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook, and I remember thinking this guy came into this billions when he was in his 30s, one of these tech billionaire guys, and he really didn't know how to handle it, if you ask me. He also, just to throw everything in here, one of the main reasons for drafting what eventually became a bust, Dwayne Haskins, and one of the main reasons he was drafted because he played high school football with Daniel Snyder's son. Go figure. You know, this is one of the most proudest organizations of all time. Joe Gribbs, 3 Super Bowl championship wins, not just appearances. I think they're with the 4 between the 80s and the early 90s there with 3 different quarterbacks. Very proud organization. Had the Hogs there, big fan base. And then this guy does everything possible. Not to mention the stuff that's been in the news here in the last year and a half, 2 years with the harassment scandal with the cheerleaders, plus the stealing money acquisitions from other owners and all that stuff. I mean, anything that can go wrong did go wrong. Albert Haynesworth said that his teammates would talk about going to the club after the game. They never even talked about football while they were there. I mean, it was a mess. It was a mess. And then on top of all that, I remember Russell Wilson says, I don't even want to go to Washington, even though he says he was going to be traded to Denver over Washington, even though Denver didn't even have an owner at the time. That's how bad it got at the very end. And I kind of got the indication that they had to overpay for free agents just to get them to even come there at the very end. Interesting team, though. Interesting, guy made quite a bit of money here. I want to say he bought them for $200 million. If I can find this anywhere, I'll let you guys know. And he's selling it for $6 billion. I mean, it just tells you what these teams are worth and how much they have gone up over the years, Pickles. You know, this is unbelievable. The kind of money that this franchise has gone up, you know. I was surprised it's went up that much in just 23 years. But hey, that's the explosion of the NFL. That is the explosion of the growth of the game. And just a little bit of heads up on this. So this guy can be worse. Cannot be worse. This Josh Harris, who owns quite a few teams now. Like I said, this Josh Harris guy is a pretty smart guy. He owns the Philadelphia 76ers. And he bought them for $208 Pickles in 2011. And now they're worth $3 billion. He also owns the Devils. So, you know, it can only go up from here. I think that now that they'll look into possibly getting a quarterback, that they're going to look at more signings, and who knows what they're going to do with Ron Rivera as the head coach there. I would give Rivera 2 or 3 more years. I think he's done a pretty good job. Remember, they went to the playoffs the year before last. This team is not that bad. They're probably a quarterback off. They like the quarterback they got. They still may be in position to sign another quarterback. So who knows? But I do think this is a really good thing for the NFL. Snyder was a terrible owner, been a terrible owner. Once that gets around, teams really start to avoid you. You know, Pickle says the rich get richer. Hey, man, it's just the growth of sports here. You know, it's the market, and it's simply the growth of sports. And can't hate on the guy for that. Can't hate on him for making a good. It turned out to be a good investment. Like I mentioned, Michael Jordan, he bought the Charlotte Hornets here, and I want to say for about the same amount, and he's going to make 10 times the amount. If he sells the Hornets, maybe that was just a rumor and nothing's happened. If he sells the Hornets, of what he bought him for. Hopefully, Sports Scope will take off like that and be worth billions. All righty then. Okay, so speaking of sports and cheap owners, I will say this: Mike Brown of the Cincinnati Bengals has been one of the most cheapest owners in the league, according to TJ Houshmandzadeh. They didn't even have an indoors. Now they're building one, if they don't already have one, because of Joe Burrow. The idea that one player can change an organization that much. Now, this guy's in his 80s. I think he's like 85 years old, Mike Brown, who owns the Cincinnati Bengals. And, you know, there was a story out of The Athletic today. Who do you pay going forward? This team they're in the Super Bowl hunt. They signed Orlando Brown. I actually, for somebody who studies this, I actually looked up. I've actually been proud of what they've done. Just about every move they've done, except for signing 2 receivers. I would have picked up Penei Sewell instead of Jamar Chase. I know Jamar Chase is all that. He's proven to be all that. So now you've got Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins. And this Athletic story was talking about, I think his name is Jeff Howell, the author here. But he also, the name of this article is Pay Burrow, Chase, Let Higgins Walk. NFL executives weigh in on Bengals cap conundrum. I'll say this. Yes. So you've got Burrow coming up to you've got Burrow coming up for a this is part of the article. It says, however, the Bengals don't necessarily have to pay Burrow now because he's on the books for incredibly affordable $11.5 million. That's why I was saying you want to really go all in this year. They put Orlando Brown. I thought maybe that adds something else to the defense, but they didn't. Maybe they go corner in the offside. I think I said let Mixon walk or cut Mixon and sign Jabari Gibbs out of my mock draft. Running back out of Alabama, Pickles. But they're paying him $11.5 million this year. In 2024, next year, it'll be 5th-year option. And that's projected to approach around $30 million. Remember, the guy's number 1 overall pick. He's a guy that's worth more money than a Deshaun Watson contract. You know, Lamar Jackson thinks he's worth it. But this guy, when you get the organization to build an indoor facility, when you get them to sign guys back like A.J. Green your first year and extend running backs like Joe Mixon and take another receiver really high and pay the kind of money on the offensive line that they did last year, then turn around and add an even better left tackle this year in Orlando Brown, this guy's doing something. You know, he's the most successful player already he's got more wins in the playoffs than anybody in the history of the franchise. I mean, that's unbelievable, Pickles, if you ask me. So, yeah, he's turned out to be all that. And, you know, this article says, so, Chase, you still got these guys. And like this article says, I do believe when you got a guy like this, I've said this from the get-go. When you got a talent like Burrow, you want to pay the offensive line and continue to add in the most valuable pieces on your offensive line that you have. And they've done that so far, to their credit. They've done that. But once, push comes to shove, when you're going to have to start moving off people, I'm like this Arthur here. I would let T. Higgins walk. When you let a player walk, you get those compensatory picks. You get those compensatory picks here when you let a player walk, whether it be a second round or a third round compensatory pick. For example, 49ers got like 3 third-round picks. One of them was hired a minority or something. But either way, and one of the minorities in management got a job with the Titans, and for whatever reason, the NFL put that in. So stuff like that, when you let players walk, you get these 4th-round, 5th-round compensatory picks. But when you got a mega talent, like Pickle says, he's going to get paid either way. Yeah, Burrow's like the most valuable. He does more with less, and I talked about that with Mahomes. So mainly, that's where my money's going. Obviously, it's going to go in him. Hopefully, he'll take a little bit of a hometown discount. You don't have to ask him to take a big chunk of money as a discount, but he would get the most guaranteed money. And to tell him, hey, look, man, if you want to get crazy with it, yeah, you're worth $55, $60 million, but it's going to be hard to field a competitive team around you. We know what you're worth. We're going to try to work this out the best we can. But, yeah, get the line, maybe get one of those receivers. You can draft running backs, and most of my defense, other than one of my better tackles and edge rushers in one corner, most of that would be addressed in the draft too. And I'm talking about if it were me, and I would pay Lou Anarumo, which I don't think he's head coaching material. He's had 2 interviews, and both of them ended pretty quickly. Their coordinator is a well of a coordinator, is a well of a guy. I would try to, we talked about this the other day. You want to pay your defensive tackles, Chris Jones, for example, Aaron Donald. Tennessee just paid Jeffrey Simmons. Very good move by Tennessee. You want to pay your tackles, your nose guys that are really good, and your edge rusher, and maybe one corner. Everybody else, linebacker. And I like what they got. They let Jesse Bates walk. The safety there, they let him walk. That's fine. You can win Super Bowls without safety. You don't need an all-world linebacker. Devin White wants to be traded from Tampa, and I heard nothing else. That was 2 or 3 days ago. Very good athlete, first-round pick, Devin White, linebacker. Those guys, you can pick those guys up in the draft. Running backs, linebackers, other defensive line, and much easier to pick that. So most of that would go there. My free agent guys around Burrow during his next contract, again, they would be mainly offensive line people. And, of course, maybe if I had to pay the edge rusher or the guy over the ball, and maybe one corner. The other corner, it would be through the draft. And when you're on a really good team like they are right now, you're actually going to attract people who want to get a ring, who are going to come out there. They should be the favorites this year, in my book, to win the Super Bowl. I really do think that. As much as I like the way the Kansas City Chiefs are being built, I like what they did, though. I like a little bit better what Cincinnati's done. I know the Chiefs are playing really well. I think they got a little cute with that, not bringing in a proper left tackle for Mahomes. And the Chiefs cannot stay on top forever. But that being said, they've got a generational guy. I can see this team knocking them out next year. But when you're playing against guys like T.J. Watt, anything Baltimore puts out there, Myles Garrett, Pickles, these are all world guys. That's some of the best defensive linemen in the entire NFL. Garrett is very close to winning Defensive Player of the Year. T.J. Watt did win Defensive Player of the Year. And anybody Baltimore puts out there, they're drafted high because that's their identity is the defensive line. So if it's me, I'm putting an influx of defensive linemen or offensive linemen, and I don't want to have I'm having the most money. I'm about like Philadelphia Pickles. I'm rivaling Philadelphia as far as the Eagles spent about $65 million budget on the offensive line, and that pocket is so clean last year. Sometimes you can eat off that thing, Pickles. And Pickles says like a blocking fullback. Yeah, guys like Henderson. Yeah, the tackle Henderson. Sam Hubbard is a defensive line. Ohio State guy. Players like that you want to keep. I would probably have a rookie corner somewhere. You can get away with the rookie. Kansas City did last year. They got away with the rookie corner. Got a lot of snaps there. So these compensatory guys, 4th, 5th round, those are all defense for me. All defense. So it's going to be an interesting story to follow. What's great about the NFL is teams like garbage teams like Cincinnati. You hit the lottery and the draft brings you hope. You get a guy like Joe Burrow. He is an Ohio native. He calls Ohio home. So interesting to see how that plays out. I know it's just a few years away. That's a good article, though, by The Athletic. So that leads me to mock draft. Okay. Now, again, last week's mock draft was what I think, judging by the personality of the team, what I think they're going to do. Now, this top 11 picks, this is if I am the general manager and it's my call for these top 11 teams in the NFL draft. By the way, all reports have now changed. This guy, what is his name? I had his name now, Thayer, whatever. This owner of the Carolina Panthers, he's really excited about getting a quarterback. I mean, he brought 11 people up, went to dinner with C.J. Stroud and everything. Now all reports are he's even more, and David Tepper, he's even more impressed with Bryce Young. With Alabama. Now, Bryce Young, there's this new Wonderlic-like test. It's only been out for a few years, 3-4 years, I think. It's called Pickles. It's called the S2. And basically what this test is, it's a 40-yard dash for the brain. You're given all these shapes and stuff, and you're supposed to, it's about quick decision making. And it's a weird test, but it's supposed to be more accurate, according to studies. Go figure. But it's supposed to be more accurate than the Wonderlic. Guys like Joe Burrow aced this test. He did really well. Josh Allen did really well. But also Justin Fields did pretty well, and he had problems making second reads. But not everything is a perfect science, right? Some people can beat the lie detector test. Okay, now... But apparently, Bryce Young, he did really well in this test, okay? But so did Anthony Richardson, and he has problems. He has a 50-point completion percentage. But, again, all indications are, yes, Young looks good. I've seen him watch a lot of his games, particularly Tennessee game. But I've also noticed, he's 5'11", 192 pounds. I saw the Arkansas game where he got hurt in, and he just pushed out of bounds. He falls down and he hurts his ankle. I mean, it wasn't like he was body slammed on the ground and a 300-pounder fell on him and crushed him. It was nothing like that. It was not one of those crazy accidents. He misses a game. He comes back the next game and plays great. That next game was against Tennessee. He plays really good against Tennessee. But, you got to think to yourself about Bryce Young, and we got to think about Tua. Now, Tua, I was reading today, I was looking at a picture of him online, Pickles, and he's got huge calves. So he's doing a lot of lifting. He's trying to add on the proper amount of bulk. But all that working out aside, we know what Tua's been. He's been a guy that's had concussions. He had a hip injury in college. He's missed for various reasons, not just concussions. Remember, he was hurt his rookie year with other just a list of injuries. I mean, then you think about another small quarterback. He does win Rookie of the Year in Kyler Murray, but he's coming back from a pretty serious, I want to say, ACL, and they're saying, what I'm reading, that he might not be back for the start of the season. Okay, another really small, frail quarterback. Other shorter quarterbacks, your guys like Russell Wilson, they're real thick. These guys were real thick, knows how to slide, play baseball. And then you look at a guy like a Drew Brees, really fast release, a much underrated athlete. If you watched him back in Purdue and if you watched him at San Diego, then he was quick, man. He was very quick player, really good athlete, a lot better shape than people. But other than that, it's not if, Pickles, it's when Bryce Young gets hurt. But he is now the favorite for the Houston Texans or for the Carolina Panthers to take him at 1. And even Adam Schefter says that. The Houston Rockets are saying, the Houston Texans, there's a report there that they're not in love with any of the other quarterbacks other than Bryce Young because of his really high completion percentage, really skilled, pocket awareness, quick instincts. But again, I'm not one of those people. Here's my thing. If you got a guy like a Bryce Young, if you take this guy, you're going to have to pay a lot of money for a high-end backup. For example, you're going to have to pay in ballpark you're going to have to outbid some teams for a backup quarterback. Towards the end of his career, remember Drew Brees was getting hurt a lot towards the end of his career. Well, the Saints paid Teddy Bridgewater $15 million to be the backup that year, if you guys recall, Pickles. And he was the backup for the backup for Brees that year. And I want to say he went like 3-1 or something. Maybe, I think it was 3-1. He's really went up to Seattle, got a big win there. But Bridgewater is a pretty injury-prone guy. But my point is, you're going to have to pay a lot of money. You're going to have to pay a lot of money for a backup because it's not if, it's when. And how many games is this guy going to miss? Is it 1 or 2? Is it going to be 5? Is it going to be 4 or 5 games that he's missed? Because it's going to be when. It's not going to be if. Okay, so now you're invested $15 million for his backup. So that instead of your typical $5 to $7 million, that's going to take away from another part of your team. So I'm just speaking for me. If I'm the Carolina Panthers, I'm taking the 6'3", 218 CJ Stroud. And listen to their stats, folks. Listen to this stuff. I did some screenshots here, okay? CJ Stroud last year, the last 2 years, 71.9 completion percentage in 21, 66.3, 41 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 44 touchdowns, 6 interceptions the last 2 years. And if you look at Bryce Young, his completion percentage, it's 64.5 and 66.9, 47 touchdowns, 7 interceptions in 21, 32 last year and 5. His numbers went down. His numbers went down from 32 and 5. Now he only played in 12 games because he's gotten hurt. He's a great player, but I just wouldn't take a guy like this in the first round. So I'm going with Stroud. I think the problem with Stroud is people do not want to say this, but I think there's some fear there because the receivers have been so good at Ohio State, and the competition's been so mediocre at Ohio State. This, like I brought in Al Borges. You guys remember when I brought Mr. Al Borges back, former offensive coordinator for the Auburn Tigers, and he calls every single game. He doesn't call the games for Michigan. He goes to Michigan. He has connections at the University of Michigan. He used to be their offensive coordinator. He's retired now, and he watches every single play. He does a podcast and a YouTube show breakdown of every play that Michigan run in the last few years. And he says Stroud is one of the best, if not the best, he's seen out of Ohio State. He thinks he's the best quarterback when I interviewed him last year in all of college football. So this guy, Stroud, 6'3", 218. We saw the way he played against Georgia. He played all world against Georgia. They should have beat Georgia. They outplayed Georgia when they let him run. So my thing is, this kind of reminds me, when you hear the term when they let him run, that was also being stated about Justin Herbert. Once he played really well in the Rose Bowl, I dismissed Justin Herbert. I don't know if he's going to be that good. I have no idea. But I do know very high completion percentage, very good athlete. He's got that build, that 6'3", 218 frame. You've got Frank Wright there to help work with him. I take C.J. Stroud with the number 1 pick, Pickles. And I do not think that I'm overstating it. And quite frankly, he's got slightly better completion percentage than Justin Fields also. And, okay. So if I'm Carolina, I know that was a long-winded answer, but it's a lot to be thinking about it. Plus Marvin Harrison Jr., he would be a top 5 pick this year, Pickles. He was only a sophomore last year. This guy was doing toe tap catches on the sideline here. He is ready-made. He looks just like his dad. He may even be better than his dad. I think he's a better prospect than his dad was coming out of college. And his dad, I think, is a Hall of Famer. Okay, so Houston's got the number 2 pick. As you just heard what I said, there's reports that they love Will Anderson, and they're not in love with any quarterback not named Bryce Young. Okay? And if I'm Houston, I take they were 32nd against the run last year. And I'm just, as I told you all, I'm just not in love with these quarterbacks to take them really high like a Stroud. I think their quarterback that's their current quarterback on the roster, I think it's Jalen Mills. I think he took a step back because of the personality of the head coach, plus the offensive coordinator in that system that they were in Houston. Now they're bringing in the zone blocking running. They're going to have some running backs here. I think I want to say they signed Miles Sanders, and Pierce looked great as a rookie, by the way. Man, he's good. Running backs take that next step that second year, but they're 32nd against the run. I go out and I draft the best defensive tackle that is not named Jalen Carter. I'm sorry. If any mistake, Jalen, there's so much that's came out about Jalen Carter. He looks great on film. But when we talk about the wreck, the leaving that scene of an accident, the fact that he was out of shape, I just talked about Robert Hainsworth and all that money he got. He was out of shape on his pro day. He had maturity issues that was being reported prior to that wreck. Then you had the wreck. Then on his pro day, he's out of shape, overweight. Even if he's getting NIL money, folks, you still ain't put a big chunk of money in his pocket yet. So I'm not going to take Jalen Carter because every little hiccup he has, if he gets another speeding ticket, if he has a unregistered gun at the airport, I'm going to hear about it. I'm gonna be talked about. I'm gonna be ridiculed because I took him with the second overall pick. So I'm not doing that. I'm not gonna take Jalen Carter. Pickle says maybe that is a baby Hainsworth. So I'm taking this Brian Breeze defensive tackle out of Clemson with the number 2 pick, and maybe I take a quarterback with my second pick because they've also got Cleveland's pick, or maybe I take my second round pick and look at a guy like a Hendon Hooker, look at the quarterback from TCU, one of those guys in the second round. I go that route, and if none of that works, we will try it again next year. We'll go after a higher grade of quarterbacks next year if I'm Houston. So I take Brian Breeze, defensive tackle, out of Clemson. Guys are quick. Okay, now Arizona. Obviously, if you're Arizona, and obviously if I was Houston, you trade down. I'm saying that you don't get the trade. You do not get the offer. If you trade down, trade down, great. If I'm Arizona, Houston, I trade down because you got multiple, especially Houston. They need some defensive guys to help stop that run. They were 32nd. That was one of the big reasons I think that Tubby Smith got fired. Did I say Tubby Smith? Either way, the coach last year, Lovie Smith. I think Tubby Smith used to be the coach of Kentucky basketball. Lovie Smith got fired because they couldn't stop the run. He's supposed to be a defensive guy. That's rule number 1 as a defensive coach, to stop the run. So if I can't trade down and I'm Arizona, I'm looking at Will Anderson. There's been some knock on Will Anderson with Alabama as of late. Some writers are saying he's overrated and yada, yada, yada. Went back at Will Anderson from Alabama, defense edge rusher. He was all world his sophomore year. He was considered the air quote best player in college football. My thing is, I've seen this before with players. I tell you what, he was trying not to get hurt last year, and he didn't play that well. That's and he still played pretty well, but that's my thing about Will Anderson. And I have read that Tennessee's Darrell Wright, the left tackle, the reason why his stock has went up so high because he kept this guy in check. He kept Will Anderson in check. But I think that Anderson, I want to say Bosa didn't play that well his last year at Ohio State. Joey Bosa, and both of the Bosa brothers are great. But we know how good Joey Bosa is. So I'm thinking that he was pulling back because he knew his stock was so high. I still like this Will Anderson guy. They need a pass rush. Remember, J.J. Watt retired this past year. Now, if you can't trade down, you need a lot of players. But if you can't trade down, Will Anderson's my guy, edge rusher from Alabama, Pickles, at number 3. Okay, now number 4. Excuse me with the quarterback thing. I misspoke. Number 4, I stand by what I say here. Even if Anthony Richardson is super rough and looks terrible, the similarities here, Jalen Hurts, how he looked out of college, are almost identical. He's a little taller. I want to say Hurts is like 6 foot even, maybe 6'1", but this guy's 6'4", and bigger, a little bigger. He runs like Jalen Hurts. He's got the build like Jay. His release is like Jalen Hurts from Alabama. That 58% completion percentage, Jalen Hurts at Alabama, I assure you, it was pretty close to that, if not worse, when he was at Alabama. Remember, Jalen Hurts transferred from Alabama to the University of Oklahoma and got his numbers better. He was a second-round pick. Anthony Richardson, when I think about Shane Steichen, the offensive coordinator at Philadelphia, who's now the head coach here, that offense, that read pass offense, I think would work like a charm, even if it's bumpy in year one. The Colts ain't going to do nothing year one anyways. They'll have him on a rookie contract. Go ahead and get all the kinks out now. They've got a second-round pick, 34 overall. Go out and get you another receiver. You're going to need another receiver to help this guy out. I take Anthony Richardson as I take that gamble with the Florida quarterback because I think that system would be perfect for him. Even if it's bumpy in year one, Anthony Richardson, quarterback out of Florida. At number 4, he fits perfectly for what they want to do. Okay? All right, number 5, Seattle. Need help with the pass rush here. The other mock draft, I said Seattle would take this Brees guy out of Clemson. Of course, in my personal mock draft, he would be off the board. For what Seattle likes to do, they have their left tackle. They have a quarterback they're going to use right now. Seattle, they're fair on defense, but they're a little shaky on that defensive line. You can still run on them. This Tyree Wilson from Texas Tech at 5. This is a guy really quick. I could see him fitting in really well up in Seattle. I take him at number 5, and I keep it moving there. Okay? Detroit. Okay. Now, remember, Detroit just had a trade this week at number 6. This is if I'm the general manager. They just had a trade at number 6. They had a trade this past week. Former number 3 overall pick, Jeff Okudah from Ohio State, that cornerback. They traded him for a 5th-round pick. Wanted to just get rid of that $5 million salary and send him over to the Atlanta Falcons, okay? They also need help at defensive tackle, but Carter's not there, and this guy from Clemson's not there. They need help at corner. They signed Emmanuel Mosley from the 49ers. I'll look back. He's only got a 1-year contract, okay? So this cornerback, I've heard a lot about this guy. This is a really good cornerback draft. Guys like Joey Porter Jr. from Penn State, the son of Joey Porter. He's a very big-time prospect. Plus, this other guy from Christian Gonzalez from Oregon's a really good one. But the one I read about the most, he's over 6 foot tall, really good corner. Most of the sites I read is the highest rated guy is this Devin Witherspoon out of Illinois. That's what I do. I get that Witherspoon out of Illinois, put him at that cornerback position, and move it around and keep it moving there at number 6 for the Detroit Lions. Okay, the Raiders. Now, the Raiders, they need help at corner. I know they need help at quarterback, but they did sign Jimmy Garoppolo to a 3-year deal. But my thing is, they need help on that line. I just had a sense that Carr didn't have much time to throw. I know they like their left tackle, Colton Miller, but if you could upgrade that and move him over to right or push him inside the guard, that's what I'm doing. Good offensive lines to better offensive lines make quarterbacks look good. When you got that extra split second to throw, or full second to throw in some cases, you can make something out of nothing, okay? So if it's me, and everything I'm reading, it looks like this guy, Paris Johnson from Ohio State, although Tennessee fans, I know you would love to have him here. A lot of the mocks have him falling to Tennessee at 11, but apparently the guy's getting a lot of freaking ink, and that's not good because that means he's going to go off the board. But if I'm the Raiders, I draft Paris Johnson, left tackle out of Ohio State. And again, who made the best man win the left tackle job in camp. The other one moves to right. Now we're trying to build something here. We've got a lot of skilled players. We've got a good running back there. Even if Josh Jacobs holds out, they could do something there. And Saquon Barkley didn't sign his franchise tag, by the way. I'd let that dude walk, man. but that's just me. Okay. So that's the Raiders at 7 if I'm the general manager. Now, 8. Okay. Atlanta. Again, Atlanta traded for cornerback Jeff Okudah out of Ohio State. Okay. Still need an edge rusher. They've got a lot of their offensive pieces. Remember, they signed a quarterback. They've got Ritter, of course, at quarterback, but also they signed a former commander, Taylor Heineke, at quarterback too. So they paid him a little bit of money. And so they need help on the edge as well. Miles Murphy from Clemson, another one of those quick Clemson edge rushers. I think they take him at the number 8 position, at the 8th pick overall. Okay? All right, number 9, Chicago. Again, one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the NFL and a well of an athlete, Justin Fields. They put their money in linebackers. Go figure. But they signed a couple of linebackers, and they did make the big trade, and they did bring in DJ Moore. They brought in Chase Claypool, but you're going to have some protection there for Fields. I go out and I draft local product Peter Skoronski, left tackle out of Northwestern. I love getting my left tackles from these, from Stanford, Northwestern, these good high academic schools. They seem to really work out well there. Wisconsin's a pretty good academic school here. So that's who I get. I get Skoronski, left tackle, offensive tackle out of Northwestern at number 9 if I am the Chicago Bears. John? Okay. Now, number 11, Tennessee. I'm out of Nashville. I have to tell you the number 11 pick. People be hounding me about this. All right. So, obviously, if I'm the Titans, their biggest concern was the offensive linemen. I mean, they are actually, number 10. I'll skip the one. I'm sorry. Excuse me. I'll skip the Eagles. Eagles got a 10th pick. Now, the Eagles, I was reading something, they really fall apart offensively without Lane Johnson there. I was reading something that this guy hadn't allowed a sack in so many years. He's long in the tooth. He re-upped, but he is in his 30s. And just like I said earlier in the program, one thing I've understood about this league is teams that invest in their offensive line, they win. $65 million for this Eagles team invested last year, and they took a guy that I didn't think could play quarterback, went to the Super Bowl with him. And that was Jalen Hurts. So if I am the Eagles now, I understand they may try to get Bijan Robinson. But I'm thinking long-term here, and I'm not going to have a chance to get a really quality guy. If I'm the Eagles, I'm taking this Darrell Wright from Tennessee, who keeps going up. The guy I just talked about a few minutes ago, who kept Will Anderson in check. Darrell Wright, left tackle out of Tennessee, skyrocketing up draft boards. I do not think it. Here Pickles says, Jason Kelce is 35 years old. Who knows when Kelce can go down? So I'm getting quality offensive line. That it's not a sexy, glamorous position, but teams that win have figured this out. Get early and often and get depth at that unit, and you can control the line of scrimmage. You can control the game, folks. Okay, so that's number 10. Number 11, Tennessee. Now, obviously, Tennessee fans, you would want to see one of those other tackles, if you can, off the board. After a thorough investigation, I sound like some cop, right? After a thorough background check and investigation of Georgia's Broderick Jones. I know Tennessee had a player from Georgia at left tackle a few years ago, One of the biggest busts of all time at left tackle. I think his name was like Isaiah Wilson. God, what a bust. But if I'm Tennessee, I'm looking at this guy named Broderick Jones, left tackle out of Georgia. And if he checks out, I go ahead and draft him, Broderick Jones, if I'm Tennessee. If he doesn't, then it's look at maybe take a cornerback at this spot here because my ratings would be better. Maybe I take a Christian Gonzalez out of Oregon. If Broderick Jones does not check out, I think this guy's going to check out. I think Tennessee will probably have their chance to get Paris or who's the other guy? Paris or Stanorski. One of those I think realistic will be available. I'm just saying if I'm the general manager of these first 11 teams, this is what I would do. So if I'm the general manager and I've taken all these other players off the board, then I have to leave last man standing, which would be Broderick Jones out of the University of Georgia. Yeah, they need left tackle and center, and people's asking me about the Titans all week. We are 2 weeks from the day, Pickles, will be the NFL draft. I will not have a show on that Thursday. I'll be on they haven't asked me yet, but I'm pretty sure they're going to have one. We do it every year. On the Mac and Jack show around the time the Tennessee Titans pick at 11. Could be total chaos. Could be nothing. Last year was chaos trading A.J. Brown like that. The Eagles made some good moves and got in the Super Bowl. Tennessee, not so good. And now they're picking here at 11, But those are the things I'm looking at. Also, Odd Shark, here's an update, by the way. Remember, I've been talking about Giannis Antetokounmpo. I guess the people from Odd Shark been watching SportsScope because now he's the favorite to win the MVP, the NBA Finals MVP. Excuse me. I thought it said MVP. Finals MVP at plus 285. Jason Tatum plus 450. Durant plus 600. Joel Embiid plus 1,000. Also, kudos to, is it Mike Brown? The coach for the Sacramento Kings. Got coach of the year, I want to say. And I'll tell you what, that's the same guy who coached. I just saw something here from Ian Rappaport. I want to make sure that nothing's been updated before I end the program. You just never know what's going to happen. I think the head coach there for the Kings got coach of the year. It's going to be a great series. Still like Golden State to win it. But I did read that the Kings are actually 1-point favorites in game one. So that's going to be a great I do think he's a good coach. You would think that team would play better defense. They don't. He was a good coach. He used to coach the Cavs when LeBron and them went to the finals back in the day. Yeah, Mike Brown. Yeah, Pickles did say that is right. Okay, thank you, Pickles. Appreciate it. Spitballing sports here. I wonder if you're talking about the Bears there. Spitballing sports. John, I'll see you tomorrow, everybody. If you guys like the show, please share the show. I need to get this thing up and running here and get this show on the road. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow with Carlos Mad New Yorker Chavez. We'll talk about these playoffs, and I'll ask him. Yeah. He wants John wants that Tyree Wilson to go to the Bears. Very good edge rusher out of Texas Tech. A lot of people like him, by the way. He's high on a lot of boards. Tyree Wilson, he may go right up there with Will Anderson from everything I've been reading. Okay. So anyways, again, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Can't wait. Tomorrow will be Friday. Have a good night, everybody.